Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm going to put my contact information here on the screen because we have Joe Tobia joining us in just a little bit. He's running for Steuben County Legislator. You can find out more at electjoetobia.com. So if you have any questions for him, questions, comments, concerns, criticisms for me, you can always reach out because we have a lot to talk about on the program this morning. So thank you for joining us. All right, making sure everything's running smooth. It sure is. Okay, I did not mention this earlier in the week because I think it just escaped my view. But we talk so often about the troubles of New York and how people are leaving in droves. We have so many politicians on, the assemblyman, the state senator, that talk about this because it is very concerning for a state that we all love. So I thought, let's bring up a positive story about New York. This coming from CNBC. Elmira, New York, the top best small city in America. Isn't that amazing? It's based on community, safety, affordable living, and education. Now, what I also thought was very fascinating in the list of top 10, coming in second, Corning, New York. We're all over the map here. This is amazing. So Elmira, Corning, and then third, Utica. And then we have Binghamton coming in fourth. I know that's 4 New Yorks, but then you have Mississippi and a couple from Kentucky. So congratulations to Elmira. Congratulations to Corning. And again, based on community, safety, affordable living, and education. Okay, now on to the kind of depressing side of New York. I had to start with a positive story this morning, but it's not all positive. And I thought this was a very good piece from the New York Post editorial board. We've talked about the migrant crisis here in New York on a regular basis. I know there's the articles that come out frequently about, Chemung County, for instance, putting in that executive order. Then you have the lawsuits. But what the Post is suggesting is if lawmakers in Albany want to earn their record wages, which we'll get to that amount in just a moment, they need to get back to Albany to tackle the migrant mess. Now, as they say here, it's been a major focus in the city, but it's increasingly becoming an issue in the state. Congressman Nick Langworthy was here, I want to say last week, and our own Maggie Hall did a great job reporting on that. And his press conference, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, his whole press conference was the migrant issue in the state because his headquarters out of Erie County, they just had an issue with that, a major issue with it. So he was laser-like focused on that crisis. So this is what the Post has to say. With the migrant crisis slamming the city and increasingly the state, the legislature needs to get back to Albany for a special session. No, Governor Hochul hasn't called one yet. Legislative leaders publicly thumbs down any return in recent weeks, which is interesting because there was so much talk, so much talk about returning back to Albany because of that Seneca Casino deal, going back to Albany, I should say, to the Seneca Casino deal. That, of course, eventually was pushed to the wayside as well. But there didn't seem to be a problem then. There seems to be a problem now as, again, with Adams and Hochul, Mayor Adams out of the city, and Hochul fighting each other on this issue, and Hochul even visiting the White House. So I don't believe she got to speak to the president directly on the issue. It was someone else in the administration, but I'll continue. They have basically said we're not interested in returning back to Albany. I don't know, I guess until this gets worse. But she warned recently that the influx, get ready for this, will cost the state $4.5 billion more than expected next year. And that's on top of a $9 million gap already looming. So the crux of their argument is, and I think it's a very good point, if lawmakers want to earn their $142,000 base pay, that's their base pay. It's the nation's highest, $142,000. And remember, they're only in session half a year. They say with greater rewards come greater responsibility. This is a crisis. Get back to work. New York's future is at stake. So on that note, one positive, one negative. We have Joe Tobia coming up in a little bit, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I know you got to see a little bit behind the scenes action of the studio there for just a couple seconds. By the way, again, I want to put my contact information up so you can reach out to me. We are going to change the topic away from New York, where we've got a lot of federal issues. We're going to talk about the former president as well as Ramaswamy. It's kind of fascinating. He gets some popularity. But we talked about it last week. When you're doing upwards of 30 interviews a day, the potential for a lot of downfall on that becomes greater and greater. And so there seems to be the long knives out for him. And again, it could be because his popularity is soaring. And I say soaring because when we actually look at the poll numbers, everybody who's soaring, Haley, Ramaswamy, we're still talking single digits. So that's a fascinating, I think, look into the media trying to make a horse race out of something that may not quite be there, but we won't get on that tangent. But we'll talk about that in a little bit because I don't want to quote it yet. I'll wait. But when the former president, Donald Trump, says about Ramaswamy that he likes him, but he better be careful because he's being too controversial, I don't know what that says about Ramaswamy or what that says about the former president, but you can weigh in on that as well. By the way, thank you for all the comments that we've been receiving, well, really since the beginning, but I've received a lot of great messages off the air. We'll try to get to some of those in just a little bit. I'm hesitant to bring this up, and we're not going to talk about it too long, but I think we have to mention Mitch McConnell. Of course, our thoughts are with him. If you did not see... Oh, there's our guest. If you did not see that press conference where he froze up, it is very troubling. And I'd love to have you weigh in on it because we've talked, and there's article after article, I have stacks of them here, talking about the age of our leaders. What are your thoughts on that? We're going to get to that in a moment. But first, I got to go to break because our guest is here, Joe Tobia. When we come back, stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and this is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, and we are being joined by candidate for Steuben County Legislature, Joe Tobia. Good morning.
Good morning, Frank.
Thanks so much for being on the program. I know it's a busy season. So you're starting. I'm glad that you can be on the program before Labor Day. They say Labor Day is the big kickoff, but you gave us a few days early. I appreciate that.
That's right. First of all, thank you for having me on.
Of course.
I appreciate it. And, yeah, we got, the Labor Day coming up this weekend. It's a huge weekend. And then I think after we get back, then you're on the ground running.
That's it.
It's
and we're gonna talk about the campaign in just a moment. But for people that don't know you personally, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, 66 years old. My entire life has been here in Corning, and I say I'm a Corning boy, and because this has been my home for almost my entire life. I taught 5 years up in Watkins Glen. Graduated from Slippery Rock University, the school with a funny name, but it had a special education degree, and then taught 5 years in Watkins Glen. Started coaching down here while I was teaching up there.
Right.
Got hired down here. Taught special education for, I believe, 15 years in Corning. So I taught special ed. I was the athletic manager in charge of all the athletics at East High School. They had an athletic manager at West at the time. That was Joe Stratton.
Yeah, of course.
And then we had an athletic director who was Al Melanda, and he kind of oversaw everything, but we were in charge of each of our individual schools. I served as an assistant principal 1 year at East. And then after getting my administrative certification, I got hired at West High. I worked with Mike Janolski and Ann Collins up there for about 3 years. And then I was hired at East High for principal. So my last 8 years in public education, was principal at Corning East High School, a school that I graduated from. So I was kind of proud of that, you know.
I don't even hold that against you.
Well, I know that, and we can talk about some West High stories here. But, you know, and then after I retired from East High in 2012, and it was right after graduation on a Friday. 2 days later, I started a job at All Saints Academy, and I was principal up there for 2.5 years.
Okay.
And then I decided full retirement in 2015. But I will tell you, Frank, you know, being an East High boy all these years, you know, and playing sports at East High, coaching sports, you know, the rivalry was alive and strong. I mean, you know it because you were part of it.
Yeah.
But when I went to West High, I had 3 fabulous years up there. And I still tell people, you know, it really opened my eyes and made me realize we've got 2 pretty good high schools here in the district. They're different in different ways, unique ways, but 2 great high schools. And,
really
you know, you were part of that.
I know.
And I always remember Frank Acom. What I remember about you, Frank, is that you were just a good kid.
Oh.
And I'm not just saying that because we're on the air or...
I'm crossing off the tough questions.
I remember, you know, you had a lot of friends. I don't think I ever heard a bad word about you. Teachers respected you. Now, I do need to ask you one thing.
Oh, no.
Because you're one of the few people in this community that had a football play named after you. Am I right, Frank?
Yeah.
Was it the Frankie special?
It was.
Can you just, I mean, I don't mean to ask the questions here. But
Yeah, what happened here? The Frankie Special, an 88 Superpower is
There
what
we
it
go.
was.
I knew it was a power
And
play.
if you want, I shouldn't go into this detail. The funny thing was, Coach Jay was kind enough to put me in. Obviously, I wasn't a starter or anything like that. They put me in. He goes, run the play. So I run the play, and he goes, do it again. Well, the team's starting to catch on.
Yeah.
Do it again 3 times. That third time, I took more tackles. They were lined up the other team directly in front of me, and then of course the whistle blew and the game was
Coach
over.
Jay
But
liked
thank
you. I know that.
Yeah,
I mean,
so appreciate
and that was just a compliment.
thank
You know, when you're well respected by the coaching staff, you know you're doing a good job, whether you start or not.
Well,
but didn't they even make shirts?
Yeah,
Shirts
come
with
on.
the play
I
on
got
the back.
questions for you. This is
Anyways, okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. You just mentioned that you went full retirement, yet you decide, you know what, I need to run for legislator. Why is that?
Well, I'm at a point in my life, 66 years old. My wife and I, like I said, I've been fully retired for 8 years. And, you know, we wanted to do a lot of traveling. We've done that.
Yeah.
We've really done a lot of traveling. I have a daughter who lives in Texas. We go down there a lot. But things are starting to slow down. So I had been approached a few times about running for legislator, running for city council, and I just wasn't ready. So this time I thought, you know, I need to do something. You know, Frank, I like to think I'm like you. We love this community. I love this community. I know you do because you've been around here all your life. And it's a great community, and it's been very, very good to me. Very good. People have treated me well. I was lucky to be a principal of a school that I absolutely hold very dearly to my heart. Great students, great parents. So I just felt, you know, it's time. You know, I got to give back here. I got to do something good for the city, good for the county. So that was my main reason. I know I can step in and do the job. There's not a doubt in my mind, and I can do a good job. I really feel I'm qualified. I've looked at the chores or the duties of a legislator. I've done, there's not one I can think of that I haven't done.
Yeah.
And I've done most of them. I've sat on councils and boards and committees. I've chaired them all.
Yeah.
You know, I've developed policy. I've made the hard decisions.
You're right.
And so anyways, that's the big reason. I know I can step in. I know I can do good things for the city. I know I can do good things for the county.
And I want to talk, obviously, more about the legislature and your goals and your plans. But one thing I forgot to mention, and it didn't come up in your background, but you've been very active in the sister cities, and you know I love that campaign.
Well, not only do you love it, you've been a big supporter.
Well, thank
and
you.
I cannot thank you enough. And I want people to know that, you know, we've been doing the Sister Cities Student Exchange Program for 17 years, and you've been a big part of it. I don't know if you realize, but frankly speaking, Frank Acom has a name over in Italy. I want you to know that.
What are you doing? I'm going to ask you tough questions.
I'm just telling you that because we always film when we came into the studio, and I want people to know that every time we had the Italian students and teachers here in Corning,
Great.
we would have them for 10 days, and you would always bring them over
Oh, yeah.
to put on the air. Emanuele Bani.
I was so excited to see him the other day.
Yeah. He speaks, not real good English, but enough to say, thank you and we love Corning and all that. But you always had him, and then we always tried to give you a student that spoke decent English.
Yeah.
But every
It was
year
fun.
you did that, and we talk about the pasta dinner because we always had a pasta dinner when they were here. So these kids and teachers spent almost 2 weeks in Corning.
It was great.
And you were a big supporter of that. And I have to say, there's a lot of people in Corning that were big supporters. I mean, they welcome these people, these students, these teachers.
I think everybody
Brad
looked forward.
Davies over at the fire station, our fire chief, he used to bring them over there and go through the equipment, let them, shoot the hose. And I mean, just two examples, you and Brad, of, opening your doors with a nice, welcome to these people. We started the program 17 years ago, and it kind of took off after 1 or 2 years. Of course, during the COVID years, we're trying to get it back and running. I gave up being the chairperson about a year ago.
Okay.
And the new chairperson now is Tim Ball. He's doing a great job. We just had 6 adults here.
That
the
was
mayor,
great.
3 city councilmen, Emanuele,
Yeah.
and Paulo Ricci, who actually helped start the program 17 years ago, but they came and visited. Did they come here?
They did not come here. The show was too new, but I went over and we covered it on the news over at, I was going to say East because we're talking about it, but the high school, and that was great. And Mayor Boland and the Key to the City, that was a really special event.
It was good. They were very impressed.
Yeah.
And I've known Valentina Vadi, the mayor of San Giovanni, for some time now, and I was so excited when she said she was going to come over, and some of the councilmen as well, or council persons as well. So it's been a good haul. We've had great welcomes by the community.
Yeah.
It's just been really nice. They love Corning. They know
You can
Corning.
tell. Yeah.
And you go over there, but what I was saying is, we always taped the radio show.
Yeah.
And then we'd go back, and of course they're showing it to their families and everything. So you can say I'm internationally known.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. All right, we're going to take a short break. Can you stay with us? Yeah, okay. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. It is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program where we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Our guest candidate for Steuben County Legislature, Joe Tobia. Thanks again for being on the program and for the kind words. So let's get away from that. We're going to get to the nitty gritty, okay? Yep. First of all, who can vote for you? Some people get confused. What area are you running for specifically?
Well, there's the Steuben County Legislature has 17 committee members, and they represent all parts of the county. Corning has 2.
Right.
Hilda Lando, and she's not up for re-election, so she's in, and the other seat is available, and that's the one that we're running for.
Okay.
And the people that can vote, you have to be a City of Corning resident and a registered voter.
That's it. Okay.
And if you cover those 2 things, you can vote.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. So what do you think the biggest issue is facing Steuben County?
Well, I'd rather say what's the hottest issue.
Okay. Perfect.
So I think we know it's the situation over on Bridge Street. And, Frank, I've had a chance to talk to a lot of the business owners over there. I did some door-to-door on pretty much covered Hillview Ave a couple days ago and covered West William Street door-to-door. And I wanted to talk to the people about it. So I've talked to a lot of people about this. They're frustrated. They're angry. And, I get it. I understand exactly where they're coming from. I do know that the county is getting ready to re-sign the contract.
Okay.
What I've been told, there's a 99.9% chance they're going to sign it.
Okay.
I don't know what's in the contract. I have foiled it. I'm going to get a copy. I'm going to take a look at it. I would like to know that we're holding the owner accountable for everything that's in the contract.
Right.
I don't know what's in there. I'll find out soon. But I think the one thing is we've made some headway with it. Now, not enough. Right. They're still frustrated over there, but there's been some improvements over there. I know they've put cameras in. I know they've put tables and chairs in the back of the building. A lot of them are out front smoking, and it's just not a good sight. They are currently, they either have or they're very close to getting a laundry facility.
Okay.
I think they're waiting for code to make sure the electrical part is all set, I think. But if it's not there, it's going to be there very soon. So we'll have a laundry facility on site. They have managers, supervisors,
Okay.
and if you've driven by it lately, you'll see it's starting to get painted. So
And
the
I
cosmetic
noticed.
part, I've always said, that's the easiest part.
Yeah.
Low cost thing. Let's at least make it look nice. Well, they've painted one side of it. The side, I believe, facing West William Street.
Okay.
So there's some cosmetic touches being done, which should be, because let's make it look good. So we've got a long ways to go. I think, number one, we cannot ignore this. And I
No.
don't think anybody is ignoring it.
Not anymore.
And I think behind the scenes, there's a lot of people pushing for some changes. Of course, people don't see that or hear it, but it's being done. And I know personally that's being done. But it's something that's going to take some time. It's not a quick fix, but it can be taken care of. I believe in that. You're too young to remember the flood. And
Yeah.
I can still remember. I was 15 years old, waking up and seeing this city. I mean, walloped.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how else to say
No.
it. It was a disaster. Weeks later, driving down Baker Street, and there's a house sitting right smack dab in the middle of Baker Street. And
Amazing.
you go down a little farther, there's a tree or a car up in a tree.
Amazing.
So we've gone through the worst of it, and we've recovered well. We'll get through this. It's going to take some time.
Yeah.
They've started some improvements. We still have a ways to go, and we got to keep pushing.
Right.
We got to keep pushing for the change. And I think more important than anything, once we continue to make these changes, we must get over there and talk to the business owners, talk to the families who live there, and say, how's it going? We can't just make changes and expect it's done.
Yeah.
Let's hear from them.
Talk to them.
They see it, they hear it, they're frustrated. We need to work with them. So I think as we make changes, touch base with them along the way to make sure things are okay, we're on our way. So
And to piggyback off that a little bit, there's obviously a lot of talk, no matter who I have on, the sheriff, any assemblyman, whoever's on, public safety, and that always ties in with the opioid epidemic and really the drug problems that we have in this area. If you are elected for Steuben County Legislature, what will you be focused on those issues? And I guess maybe what are you looking at when you think of public safety and the
Well,
drug crisis?
I had a good discussion with Sheriff Allard, Under Sheriff McNellis.
Sure.
I met with them about a month and a half ago, and they really gave me some good information. I'm going to support let's face it, the number one priority in our community should be safety.
Right.
It should be. When I was principal of a school, that was my number one priority. You take care of the safety first, and then everything falls behind
That's the number one job of a politician, isn't it?
it. Well, I think so, yeah.
I mean,
And take care of the people.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to support anything that's going to help the county or the city and make it safer. I know Sheriff Allard said, they're scrambling for deputies.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
enough deputies.
and that's at everything at the county level. Everybody I have
Yeah.
on, I mean, I sometimes feel like the interviews lead into almost like it's a job fair, and you can't blame them because with the lack of officers, it's not fair for who's already on the job, and you tie in the public safety aspect.
That's right. That's right. And the police department we have in Corning, which I have the highest respect for, we have an excellent police department. I sat down with Police Chief Spalding. And I've known Kenzie since she was a student at East High.
I
She
know.
graduated in the mid-'90s. She was actually my school resource officer for 2 years
Oh, is that right?
when I was principal at East. So I know Kenzie fairly well. And, there's some situations that they're frustrated with. They're short officers.
Right.
She's short 2 officers. She can't find police officers.
Amazing.
So we've got to find a way to support that. Find a way to support Sheriff Allard in what he needs. Find a way to support our police chief Spalding and the department in what they need. We've got to find ways to find these people to hire them to fill these vacancies. But also along the way, I was at the legislative meeting Monday, and you want to talk about addiction and drugs.
Yeah.
A young man spoke named Brandon Buter. He's out of the AIM House, and he was actually from Elmira, but he spoke in Bath. And I think he gave us some data. He said that last year they had in Steuben County 289 overdoses.
I know.
and I think he said about 12 or 13 fatalities. This year to date, 259 overdoses, 12 fatalities so far. So that has taken a step up. We've got to address that.
Yes.
Whichever way possible. Another stat that kind of blew my mind from Sheriff Allard, he told me, he said almost 80% of the people his deputies deal with in the county have a mental illness, have an addiction, or a combination of both.
That's horrible.
That just blew me away.
Yeah.
80%. So, yeah, we need to concentrate on addiction and mental health. They're huge, huge. And, can I say something about mental health?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Well, I will tell you, our governor just came out with a budget for 2024. $1 billion. $1 billion is going to be budgeted for New York State next year. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And she's looking at outpatient services, inpatient services. They want to cover everything. When the budget came out, what they decided to do was they said they were going to go into the big cities and see where the money should be put. My wife's a huge advocate for NAMI, National Association for Mental Illness. Huge advocate. She made some noise, wrote some letters, made some phone calls, and said, whoa, you don't think we have suicides in the rural areas?
Yeah.
My son died from suicide here. Why aren't you, So about a month ago, she got a call from a man named Tony Trantner. I might not say that right. But anyways, he's either the head of the state Office of Mental Health or he's second in command.
Yeah, close, yeah.
And he had told my wife, because of the letters, because of the phone calls, because she made some noise, they not only investigated the rural areas, but they found there was a great need for money in the rural areas. That's all fine and dandy. Now, so what they're looking at is Steuben County needs some money.
Yeah.
How much noise are we going to make?
Yeah.
Who's going to speak up? Frank, I want to be their voice. I want to go after that money. I want as much as we can get into Steuben County next year because we need it.
Yeah.
We need it
Yes.
bad. So those are some of the things, and I honestly believe when you deal with mental health, you're going to deal a little with addiction. Not a lot, but a little. These people don't have the facilities. They're not getting the medication. They're not getting the treatment. They're not getting the care they need. So what do? These people are suffering. They self-medicate. And when you self-medicate, whether it's meth, opiates,
Yeah, you name
some
it.
type of controlled substance that addicting, you get addicted. And once you're addicted, you need the money to buy the stuff. So there's a domino effect there too.
I totally agree. Now, we're just about out of time, so I do want to add, and you've kind of touched on it throughout the interview, what would you say your goal is if you become Steuben County legislator?
To make things happen here in Corning, to help the people that need some help. Like I said, talking to Police Chief Spalding, great police department, they're doing good things, but they're frustrated because their hands are tied on certain things.
Right.
I want to be that help. I want to step in and help them. Same with Sheriff Allard.
Yeah.
He needs some help. Again, we're talking safety issues. He needs some help. We've got to support him and his staff. We must do that. There's a lot of little things. Tourism. I think you saw my.
Yeah.
That's bringing money into the area.
So important to our area.
When you played football, you needed a hitting sled. What did you do? You had a bake sale.
You're right.
We can't do that in Steuben County. So what you got to do is find ways to bring money in. Tourism. We live in one of the most beautiful areas of this country. The Finger Lakes. Beautiful. And I had a chance to sit down with Kevin Peterson, executive director of the Tourist Center and Conference in Steuben County. Very impressed with this young man. Very impressed. He wants to do more with tourism. And, support him, support some of the things he's looking into, trails, other things. It's going to bring money into the county. It's going to bring sales tax into the county. It's going to keep our taxes down low. So those are just a couple of the things. There's a lot more.
Well, we'll have to do this again.
Okay.
Because I know there's going to be a lot more we can talk about and plenty of time before the election. Just before we go, how can people help your campaign?
Take a look at my webpage,
electjoetoby.com,
and see if they're happy with it. I mean, that's what we want. If you feel I'm qualified, I can do the good job, vote for me. If you don't vote for me. I mean, it's that simple.
Well, thanks so much for being on the program, giving me so much time, and let's do it again soon.
All right, Frank.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Thank you again to Joe Tobia for being our guest. He's running for Steuben County Legislator. You can find out more at electjoetobia.com. I know I talked over him a little bit when he said that, so it is electjoetobia, TOBIA.com, and we will be talking with him and his opponent, Allison Hunt, frequently before November, so you can always send in questions. And I know I mentioned this a lot. Let me put my contact information up because we're going to have to take another short break because I did run late. But if you know someone that's running for office, or maybe there's someone in your area that you're not familiar with but you know is running, contact me. I can't reach out to everybody, so refresh my memory. I would love to interview guests as we get, and political candidates I should say, as we get closer to November. So never hesitate. Contact me. And that's just in general. Questions, comments, concerns, criticisms. Anytime, there's our contact information. We got a couple of waves this morning. It's a beautiful day on Market Street. We do have to take another short break. I know right before Joe Tobia came in to the studio, we were talking about Mitch McConnell. I don't want to focus too much on it. And if you haven't seen the video for yourself, I would say I would recommend it because it's newsworthy. But it's very troubling. And it makes you concerned when this becomes so frequent in the news, whether it's Feinstein, whether it's McConnell, and then you start talking about the age of Biden, and you start talking. As a matter of fact, I might have it here just to show you and there's story after story about this being a major issue in Washington as our leaders age. Look at this this is from Roll Call. That is the 20 oldest members of Congress and their dates of birth. Feinstein, born in June of 1933. You scroll down all the way to June 29, 1943. So this is a major topic, and I want to hear from you. I don't really want to weigh in on it myself. I will leave that to you. So please contact me, and if I don't have the contact information up, look at the bottom of the screen. It's right there by the two waves that we've received this morning. All right, let's take another short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. Thank you again for joining us here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So I think I popped this up on the screen just quickly. What is your thoughts on this? And this is a common conversation at the New York Post. Very often the New York Post can lean conservative, but as of the last maybe you could say since January 6th, but it seemed like before that, they are not what you would call Trump supporters. So this article, and I just want your opinion on it. Again, this is how we're leaving it. If I can put the browser up, there we go. Republicans and Democrats must find, new presidential candidates to save America. The reasoning for Joe Biden in this case, and we're not going to get into the article in depth, is because just, if nothing else, the poor standing in the polls. Only 42% of Americans approve of the president's overall job performance. Of course, you have the polls going back to what we were just talking about before break, about the issues with his age and the concern. And second, they're saying, again, because it is the New York Post, saying about the Hunter sweetheart plea deal. On Trump, it's pretty standard of what you'd expect for them to go after. And that's why I bring it up, because it leads us into the discussion that I want to have on Trump. What do you think about that, though? I know we've had some people that have texted this program who have suggested maybe a Ramaswamy. I've heard a lot of people say Nikki Haley had a great debate performance. I would not disagree with that. As a matter of fact, according to Axios, Trump's campaign, I think they may not be reading enough into this, but Trump's campaign is saying Nikki Haley is someone to watch out for, could overtake DeSantis. Is that just Trump also going after DeSantis again, though? Because they have been trying to hit him on the polls from really since the beginning. So is this a way to kind of kill two birds with one stone? But according, again, they called a scoop at Axios, saying that Trump pollster Tony Fabrizio is telling Republican donors that Nikki Haley has surged in Iowa since last week's GOP presidential debate, and that she and Ramaswamy are essentially tied with DeSantis. Again, I just think it's a way that they're hoping to take out DeSantis, not necessarily because he's the best candidate or the most feared candidate in the Trump circles, but just, you've got to chip away at each opponent as you can. But with Ramaswamy, it's fascinating, and we'll get to this after break. But again, the guy does around 30 interviews a day. They said in that one article that I was reading that 5 hours was a short day of and that's just interviews with the media. When you do that, we've joked about it on the program here before, when you do that many interviews or when you've been on in some form of media that long, there's always going to be some type of issue. It doesn't matter who you are. You can say, well, Trump had him, just never, for whatever reason, stuck or got to him when he ran. So when you're in the media that often, you're probably going to have a few slip-ups. So they're already jumping on that, lashing onto it, which is interesting because the media seemed to kind of like Ramaswamy at the beginning, or at least kind of was fascinated by his campaign. And now you have articles like this from The Hill, Ramaswamy's no good, very bad week, which I think we can all agree that headline being constantly used for whatever topic, the no good, very bad week, awful week, that kind of thing, we could probably retire that by now. But let's take a short break. We're going to talk about him when we come back. As always, you can weigh in on it. The number's on the bottom of the screen. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. Here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. So I mentioned Ramaswamy, and I know we've had a lot of people reach out and talk about him in the past. Same with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That's fascinating because some recently Texas program, a few, that said maybe he could be Trump's VP. I don't think that would ever happen. But anyway, so Ramaswamy starts off really good. Some people hated his debate performance. Some people loved it. That's neither here nor there. But he did start out for a relatively unknown guy. I wouldn't even say relatively, a very unknown guy. He did start to see some moves and some poll increases. So now you have, like I said, the headlines, no good, very bad week. And then he starts bringing up some questionable topics, right? So the New York Post saying it's a race for the White House. Then he calls him a name, not chief, we'll say idiot, as Ramaswamy struggles to stay normal. And that is the talking point of the week, if you will, that he's going conspiratorial. Now I'm not going to say in his defense, in just thinking of it from a media perspective, that's the same thing, of course, that they do with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And you can say a lot of it's justified, don't get me wrong, but that once you get that label, it normally latches onto you. And that's why I bring it up, because I thought it was hilarious that Trump decided to weigh in on it, and how Trump decided to weigh in on it. Because you can say what you want. Trump, I mean, let's face it, when it comes to controversy and conspiratorial topics, the former president does not shy away from that. So he was on Glenn Beck's show, and they asked him about Ramaswamy. Would you put him in as vice president maybe? He said, well, I think he's great. Look, anybody that said, this is so Trump 101. Look, anybody that said I'm the best president in a generation, I don't know. You have to, define a generation. That's a long time. He said it a couple of times, and he said it in 100 years. So I have to like the guy like that. Any guy like that I have to like. I can't get upset with him. Again, perfect Trump. And then he goes on to say how many times and what names Ramaswamy called him, like very smart, things like that. Okay, now the reason I boil this all down before we take our last break for the program and then wrap things up, he said, quote, he's starting to get out there a little bit. He's getting a little bit controversial. I tell him to be a little bit careful. Some things you have to hold in just a little bit, right? But he's got a lot of good energy, and he's been very nice to me. So that's interesting. I guess maybe I haven't seen all the coverage of Ramaswamy or what he said this week, but if former President Trump is saying he's getting a little bit controversial and has to rein himself in, it might have been a lot worse of a week than I originally realized. I'll have to do a little more research on it. But we do have to take our last break, and then we're going to wrap things up. It's going to be fast, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We got a couple comments during the break, and these are ones I always read. As I said, I will read both sides. So if you say the show is great, yes, I'm going to read on the air. But if you don't think it's great, you can contact me as well. It's just the darndest thing. We haven't got any bad text yet. It's all been very positive. So this one says, great show, and we got sent a virtual wave. So we will add the wave to the bottom of the screen. That puts us at 3 this morning. All right, as we wrap up, there's two quick stories. First, Cornel West is really kind of fascinating because if you put him in some of these national polls, it obviously affects not a ton, but it affects Joe Biden. And sometimes it puts Trump, depending on the poll, Trump ahead of Biden in the general. Because Cornel West, and boy, they like Cornel West until this. And now you have a lot of people, and a lot of it is unnamed sources, which I hate, and I don't bring those up very often on the program. But there's also been some prominent Democrats who are really upset because he's the Jill Stein candidate. I think Jill Stein didn't have as much effect as people think, but you get the idea, or maybe a Ralph Nader or a Ross Perot, whoever you want to go back to. So Cornel West is running for president, if you're not aware, a third-party Green candidate. He was being interviewed by Hill TV's Rising, and they were talking about the Democrat Party, and he said that the Democrat Party is unable to meet the needs of the poor, which is a very damning statement from him. He said they are dominated by the corporate wing. Again, this is Cornel West talking about the Democrat Party. They're dominated by the militarists when it comes to foreign policy, and that Sanders, meaning Bernie, and AOC and the others are going to be, in a certain sense, window dressing at worst and at best people to appeal to every 4 years. But the Democratic Party is beyond redemption at this point. Those are strong words when it comes to seriously speaking to the needs of the poor and the working people. Lost their way, according to Cornel West. Now, on the other side, and this, you can be the judge of whether or not you think Matthew Dowd, who worked for the Bush-Cheney 2004 presidential campaign, whether or not he is Republican or conservative. I'm not going to dive into that, but he was on MSNBC's The Readout program. And he says that Republicans have basically decided to secede from our democracy. Again, strong words here. If you think about this, they completely adapted an ends justify the means approach to the democracy, which means it doesn't matter what we do as long as we get the end we want. I was thinking about this a lot, and then he goes on, and I realize I'm out of time. It is modern. It's secession in the 21st century. It really is. So there, we covered all issues. Thank you to everyone who joined us this morning. Thank you to Joe Tobia for being our guest. Find out more at electjoetobia.com. He's running for Steuben County Legislator. All right, join us every weekday morning starting at 7 for Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We will talk to you very soon. Have a great day, everyone.